the eternal way to start a presentation, isn't it? Which is to ask if you can see my slides.
Yeah, we got them. Yeah.
Very good. So good afternoon all. So thanks very much. As introduced, I'm Kelvin Davies. I work for Innovate UK, which is the government's innovation agency, but I'm currently on secondment to the Global Centre of Rail Excellence. So what I thought I'd do this afternoon is outline some of the challenges that we've encountered in delivering innovation to the railways, introduce you to some of the programmes that Innovate UK has been delivering. And then, because I'm currently seconded across to the Global Centre of Rail Excellence, I thought I'd provide a bit of a background on that. Ian, I don't know if the team has already had a presentation on GCRE, but it's an interesting vehicle for railway innovation. And then I can give an example of some of the projects that Innovate UK is delivering at that site, just to flesh out some of the interesting things which are going on. So delivering innovation, the railways, they're a complex industry. We all know that. Anybody who's worked in rail has grey hair like mine. And particularly so if you're trying to deliver innovation into the railways. It's a difficult place to innovate for a number of reasons. We know it's safety conscious, it's highly regulated. There's lots of stakeholders. We have the TOCs, the ROSCOs, the owning groups, the operators, HS1, HS2, Transport for London, Transport for Wales now, Transport for Scotland. So there's lots of barriers to get innovations on the railway for the simple reason that you often have to get multiple permissions to do anything new. So those barriers are an interesting challenge for innovators, and it's difficult for anybody, particularly those new to the market, to overcome them and to see the light at the end of the, no pun intended, tunnel, and how they can actually get their innovation developed, demonstrated, and ultimately commercialised. And in particular, and part of the theme of this talk, trialling innovations on the railway is difficult. We have the RIDICs, we have the, to those of you who don't know, the RIDICs are the Network Rail Test and Development Centres. We have Long Marston, which is another place that trains can be run off network. We now have, in the Black Country, we have BC IMO, which is worth having a look if you're not familiar with that. It's in Dudley, in the centre of Dudley. And in the future, we'll have this fledgling establishment called the Global Centre of Rail Excellence, which I'll spend a bit of time speaking about. So a summary of Innovate UK. Some of you may know Innovate UK, some of you may not. It's a government-funded organisation responsible for delivering innovation to the UK economy to help to grow the economy. Many developed nations have a similar organisation. The objective is to spot those great ideas which are a bit risky for private industry to fund themselves, and to inject public funding to make them happen, to make them a reality and to make them a commercial success. The organisation works across multiple disciplines, and my role for many years has been to support rail innovation. And on the call today, I think we've got James Bevan, also from Innovate UK, who's currently looking after rail innovation within the organisation. And what have we done over the years? Well, we've invested a lot of public money in delivering a number of competitions for a number of customers, and we've seen some great successes. But over the timeline, back from 2011, we've delivered competitions with RSSB, with Department for Transport, with Network Rail, with HS2, and more recently with the Global Centre of Rail Excellence and the Department for Business and Trade. And there's far too much in that history, in that timeline, to go into much detail. But the current programme funders are DFT, HS2, the Department for Business and Trade, and with a partnership for GCRE. So I thought I'd just give an illustration. So James is responsible for managing this competition. This is the theme of the most recent competition under the brand of First of a Kind. Again, some of you may be familiar with that. I see some familiar names on the call. The First of a Kind programme has dabbled with many themes over the years, all extracted from the Rail Technical Strategy. And the most recent one looked at customer experience, reliable and maintainable assets, optimised train operations, and delivered a component as well for HS2, looking at high-speed rail systems. And those projects are currently live and ongoing. But in railway construction, which is more perhaps aligned to the interests of this meeting, we recently were given some funding, £8 million, quite a lot of funding, to deliver a competition in partnership with GCRE. And that competition broke down the elements of the railway into the list you see there, and offered this to industry, inviting them to innovate, to deliver us better, more cost-effective more resilient track work, OLE, earthworks, power supply infrastructure, telecommunications, security, monitoring and maintenance, railway operations, and last but by no means least, ecology and habitat creation. The last one in particular was of great interest to us because a large element of railway capital funding in building a new railway or upgrading a railway gets spent on ecology and habitats. So it was a great opportunity to look at innovative ways of maintaining, preserving, and developing ecology and habitat creation. So a summary of that competition, simply to set the scene for some things I'm going to see later. We funded 24 teams using £575,000 of government funding, of public funding, to deliver innovations in railway construction. And currently, at this moment in time, 13 of those are delivering those innovations with a view to installing them at the Global Centre of Rail Excellence. So if anyone's interested for professional reasons or perhaps even personal reasons to find out more about that programme, please let me know. And there'll be some open days on the GCRE site towards the end of 2024 when those teams will be demonstrating some really quite innovative ways of building railways more cheaply, more efficiently, more rapidly, and at a lower cost. And if anyone on the call is asking the question, where can I get funding for my innovation, which is usually what most people are interested in very often, is the answer to that is that Innovate UK publishes all of its competitions on a single web page, which is highlighted here. And there's typically 20, 30 competitions live at any one time, of which a small number will be of relevance to the railway industry. So if you or your colleagues are interested in how to access competition funding, that's the answer. And there's a link at the bottom of that page. It's slightly subtle. It's at the bottom of that page, and it says sign up for competition updates. And that's the route to getting updates about future competitions and future funding opportunities. There's typically about perhaps 3 or 4 new competitions launched every week, typically on a Monday morning. So what I was going to do then was provide a bit of an update about the Global Centre of Rail Excellence. The relevance of this is, as I said at the start, I'm employed by Innovate UK, but currently on secondment across to GCRE for the simple reason that it's an amazing facility for the future support and enhancement of railway innovation. And I'll explain why now. So the background to GCRE, as I said, in delivering rail innovation, what you're often missing is that facility to do your testing. In funding an innovation competition, experience has determined that if you wish to demonstrate on the live rail network, that can consume a large part of your innovation budget, which is fine, but it's not ideal in terms of the intentions of any competition. So much better would be to spend more of the government funding on innovation and less on access to test facilities, and GCRE will provide a useful solution to that challenge. There are some test centres in the UK, as I mentioned. There's some operated by Network Rail, there's one operated by Porterbrook, and there's one funded in Dudley, as I mentioned. But there isn't really, in particular, any way to test the combination of rolling stock and, critically, infrastructure. And infrastructure, I think the figure is that infrastructure forms 90% of the cost of any new railway that you're going to build. So if you want to save money and if you want to make railway construction cheaper and easier, then targeting the infrastructure for cost reduction is a really good plan. In addition, if you want to test rolling stock, that is also quite difficult. So new trains coming out of the manufacturing plants and going onto the network all have to do a certain amount of shakedown testing, and the existing facilities are busy. And although they're excellent, they are difficult for manufacturers to access. And that's what we've always found in managing the first of a kind programme for the Department for Transport. We've always found that teams found it difficult to access test sites, which impacts on the overall quality of the programme. So GCRE fills that gap. And the concept is interesting, and credit to the Welsh Government for picking up on this. The Welsh Government recognised the opportunity in the construction of such a site and had a good look at where one could be accommodated within Wales. And the luck of the draw here is that the closure of a large number of coal mines in Wales provides an interesting opportunity to locate and to acquire large-ish by my standards, by most of our standards, tracts of land which can be repurposed from coal mining to other things. And in the Nant Helen area, which is just north of Neath, it's about 15 miles to the northeast of Neath. The site was ideal in terms of its topography and the extent. And it also is in an area which scores highly for levelling up, in that it is a reasonably deprived area with the demise of the coal mining industry, and regrettably more recently with the threat of a number of jobs at the Port Talbot Steel Works. So politically, it was quite a good place to propose putting a railway test facility, and also geographically, it works really well. And that's where it is. So it sits, as I said, 15 miles outside Neath, but with good connections to the M4. And if you know, the A465 is the head of the Valley Road, which is being upgraded to dual carriageway. And critically, because it's an ex-coal mine, the site also has a rail connection down to the South Wales main line at Neath, which is extant and capable of accommodating traffic. So, quick overview. It is a purpose-built site for world-class research, testing and certification of rolling stock and infrastructure. It's purpose-built. It'll also, I'll put up some bigger screenshots, artist impressions of the site in a moment, but it will accommodate a technology park, a headquarters. The plan is that it'll be open access for a range of organisations that wish to test. So it's not owned, as it were, by a rolling stock manufacturer. It is open access to anyone who might wish to access it through a membership scheme. We have planning permission to operate it on a fairly intensive schedule, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's in a good location, and it is also going to be the UK's first net zero in operation railway. So to highlight what we're actually talking about, we are planning to build a brand new 7.9 kilometre approximately railway on this coal mine, hillside in fact. It is a mound with a level circumference, which is where the track bed is proposed to go, on the side of the hillside for testing both rolling stock and for testing infrastructure. Associated with it will be a depot and an engineering area down to the bottom right, and offices and classrooms and meeting rooms and exhibition space. So that the vision is that it will both be a test centre for a range of railway assets, but also a showcase for all that's best in UK, European, and indeed global railway engineering. So it will be a through life test facility. The infrastructure loop, I didn't highlight exactly the concept behind that, but that is one of the really unique features of GCRE. Rolling stock testing, I think it's self-evident what that means. That the concept there is a rolling stock manufacturer will bring their new trains out of the factory, and as part of preparing them for service, to an intensive set of running to put in the miles to see and to ensure that the rolling stock is fit for service. But the infrastructure loop is a really exciting concept, because it will allow infrastructure owners, be that Network Rail, HS1, HS2 in the future, to try out new concepts for infrastructure. And in that particular case, GCRE will apply the loading by running a heavily loaded freight train on the network 24/7. So the concept here is that the GCRE team will promise to apply a loading to a novel infrastructure element at an accelerated schedule compared to anything that might go on the real network. And for exactly that reason, the infrastructure will be fitted with a range of systems consistent with a modern state-of-the-art railway, which are listed here. And a good case study of how this might be used is that the HS1 network is increasingly reaching the end of its first incarnation, in that it is now, is it 30 years old, I think, this year, since elements of HS1 opened. So a concept would be to install at GCRE elements of any future HS1 upgrades to allow them to be loaded at GCRE so that our infrastructure is always more intensively used than the real HS1. A concept that's familiar to me from a previous life I had in aviation, where there's always an iron bird at the factory which has experienced more flight hours than a real aircraft, so that if any failures or any concerns are to be raised, they are raised in the test item rather than on the real aircraft. Similar case with GCRE. The plan is to install infrastructure on the site, which will always be at a more advanced stage of use, of age, if you like, than the equivalent equipment on the real network. So the summary of GCRE, what will it offer? It will offer rolling stock testing. It will offer teams the opportunity of doing innovation for infrastructure in a way that's considerably easier than on the national network, but much more credible and much better than doing that equivalent work in a laboratory. And of course, showcasing innovations to the railway industry, to stakeholders, and generally being good for the UK railway industry and helping to promote UK rail expertise to a global audience. And in building it, it's not idle. You know, it is well supported by industry. So currently, at least 160 companies have signed a letter saying that they would value the existence of GCRE, including some big players. You'll see Hitachi Rail at the top, and they have already signed an MOU confirming that they are extremely interested in the opportunity that the site would offer, with a number of other companies listed there. I couldn't get 160 companies all on one slide. And a quick summary on the funding and the timeline. There is already £70 million of support from public funds, and I'll highlight the second bullet point there a little bit more detail in a second. 7.4 million from the Department for Business and Trade to deliver some innovations in railway construction. Similarly, another £15 million to develop an R&D centre. Critically, though, we need a significant amount of private investment, and the process, which started in 2023, is ongoing, but with hopefully an end in sight quite soon. So I mentioned light at the end of tunnels. There's very definitely is light at the end of that tunnel, and we're hoping to get embarked on the main construction very soon, with a plan to open the facility by 2027, which is, of course, very, very soon in railway terms. And before I get on to show some slides, including the artist's impressions and what the site currently looks like, there's also wider opportunities for innovation on the site through non-railway applications, simply because there's a lot of land in the centre of the site that's not used by the railways. So if anyone on the call has interest in highways testing or automotive testing or solar farms or anything similar, please get in touch and let us know so that we can deliver innovations in other sectors and make the site bigger than simply a railway innovation site. So here we go. Here's the artist's impressions. What you see in the foreground to the left is what we call base camp. That's our sidings area and our R&D campus. And the main loops you can just about see to the lower right, including our solar farm and our turbine power generation facilities. And to set the context, that shimmering sea you can see in the background, that's the Bristol Channel with Devon in the background. And so Swansea and Neath are the two towns you can see at the heads of the two valleys. Artist impressions. I love artist impressions. If only real world construction was as easy as artist impressions. This is the artist impression of our depot area, with the GCRE facility being up to the top right, where you see the wind turbine, and the shimmering building burning the midnight oil there is the hotel facility, I believe. Similarly, our campus. This is our base camp with very ambitious plans to generate a real cluster of railway innovation activities and railway engineering activities, all in the one site. However, what the site looks like now is a little bit different. It's essentially primarily still an ex-coal mine. with an interesting geological structure, of course, because the material on this site for many decades has been moved and moved again. So it is essentially like a clay plasticine site that we can mold into what we want. And that's both an advantage in terms of building a new railway and a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of securing the earthworks and ensuring that everything is stable and able to support high-speed trains. In terms of high-speed trains, we do have a track bed now, and this is my blue boxes there depict approximately where the track bed will go, and the areas of the plasticine have been leveled to show the trace of the tracks. And in the background, the setting, as you can see, is spectacular. It's just on the fringes of the national park of what used to be called the Brecon Beacons, and I won't attempt to pronounce the new name. But we're just outside the national park, but with considerable advantages in terms of the scenery that will be seen from the railway. Again, an example of the earthworks which have been taking place. So this is one of the cuttings which has been excavated, sweeping round from the left-hand side of the picture to the right. And that's the same cutting, but shown from below with one of our many tour parties visiting. And looking down to the depot area as it currently is. So this is the base camp area. And again, the two strips that I've added to the image roughly depict where the twin traces of the infrastructure and the rolling stock loop will go. And we also have something we're not quite sure what to do with. We call this the void. This is the most recent section of the site which was used for open cast mining. It's still in this photograph a large void, but it's been infilled or backfilled to the tune of something like 70 meters, I think, when this photograph was taken. We're not sure what to do with that, as I say, but we think it'll be useful for something. So it's a nice thing to have in the hope of finding a use for it. But it's immediately adjacent to the site, but not needed for the current railway traces. So again, if anyone's got any needs for a large void, perhaps we can think of a better name for it, then please get in touch and let us know. So I thought I'd having outlined the site, the theme of the talk is innovation. Let's talk through some of the innovations which are going on to the site. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we funded through the Department of Business and Trade a total of 13 projects. And their challenge is to take their innovations and to deliver them to the site, which I've just shown pictorially, by the end of 2024. We had hoped that we'd have more of an existing railway on the site by the time that these technologies arrived. We had hoped indeed that some of these technologies might form an integral part of the railway components, the railway structure that we're installing on the site. But because of the juxtaposition of various timescales, that's less likely. But instead, what we were going to deliver is a beautiful demonstration park of a range of innovations related to railway construction. And I'll just take you through a few of these for illustration purposes now. So this is a really nice project. It's a composite twin cantilever component on Euro-E. The reason composites are attractive is that their durability is excellent, but equally importantly, they require significantly less piling because they're lighter. And if you need less piling, then you can electrify a railway more rapidly, more cheaply, and with considerably less inconvenience to local industries, to local residents. So it has a huge advantage in terms of building future railways. What it hasn't been proven in a railway context. It hasn't been accredited yet. So GCRE offers a really excellent opportunity to do that. And that will be installed on the site by the end of the year. And that's delivered by a team called AUS. Secondly, concrete. I only learned a few years back that concrete was so carbon intensive, but of course it is. And there are a number of initiatives to try and reduce the carbon component of concrete. And the wonder material for a number of years now has been graphene. If you're familiar with the technology, graphene is the next generation of carbon. It is a sheet of graphite, which comes in a filament form or a sheet form, and through that adds strength to a range of materials. And the approach here is to add graphene directly into the concrete mix to add strength in a way that rebar might traditionally add strength. The implication for that is that for any application, the concrete is stronger, therefore you need less of it, therefore it's cheaper to buy and you can install more quickly, and it has a reduced embodied carbon contribution. So a nice way of looking at demonstrating graphene enhanced carbon through sleepers, perhaps through retaining walls, a range of applications. And the objective on the GCRE site will be to install that innovative concrete to demonstrate that it works as it says on the tin, that it is as strong and as durable as it says it is, and to look to getting it accredited for railway use. This one's a little bit left field. So we have a mining site. We have a vague idea or a rough idea what's going on underneath our ground, and the conventional way of confirming that is through drilling activities and taking sample cores. This team instead are proposing using gravity sensing. So gravity sensing, those of you with a good grounding in physics will recognize that gravity is a fairly subtle effect. But this team are planning to use gravity sensing to look for voids and obstructions and elements in the ground beneath our railway to understand what's going on underneath. Furham Frey, many of you will know Furham Frey, an established supplier of OLE. This particular project is going to install on the site a system called Codes. Codes is designed to look at that interesting interface where there is a requirement on the national railways for a sudden change in electrification height. Typically, a station environment is a good example. At a station environment, there is often an overbridge for the passengers to get from one platform to another, and very possibly a level crossing. And the overbridge requires the OLE to be low, and the level crossing requires the OLE to be high. So there's a rapid gradient change, which has implications for rolling stock design and particularly pantograph manufacturers. So CODES, if you can see in the graphic there, is a way of mechanically driving the electrification to examine a range of gradients. To look, it's quite subtle, but you can see the wires are rising and falling top right of that image. So it will allow teams, for instance, perhaps working towards the electrification from Cardiff down to Swansea, to understand a bit more about the dynamics of getting the pantographs and the wires under each bridge. And second last, Unipart Rail and Thomson Engineering Design are working with a novel and a low carbon, low emissions track laying machinery. Again, we tend to take yellow plant for granted, but yellow plant is critical to the costs of installing a new railway and to its carbon footprint. So the team plan to demonstrate on the site a new way of laying track using a novel track laying device. And if you're interested, as I said, there'll be a range of demonstrations on the site towards the end of 2024. Just watch out for those. Link in with me on LinkedIn and make sure you get invited along. And finally, I left Hypertunnel till last because I thought Hypertunnel was particularly interesting in terms of innovation. It's a little bit difficult to demonstrate the concept, but the concept here basically is that if one needs to install an underpass, instead of having to close the railway and to do a cut and cover type approach, the Hypertunnel approach is to drill a number of boreholes. And from those, which are the black tubes you can see in those diagrams, and from those boreholes, inject a glue, if you like, into the surrounding material in an arc, and then simply scoop out, which then sets hard, and then scoop out the centre of the tunnel without the need of closing the railway. And here's perhaps an easier way to demonstrate it. In the tubes you see labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Those are the boreholes through which robots have crawled with a technology to install and to inject a glue into the surrounding material. And having done that, you can see that the tunnel has been dug out beneath without the necessity of doing anything with the surrounding material. So all of those boreholes are as they were drilled initially, and then the tunnel has been carved out below them. So a great way of installing a new underpass, be that for drainage or pedestrian access, or maybe even road access, without the need to close the railway, without the need to have possessions potentially, although maybe you'd want a possession for some part of that. And what's going to happen at GCRE is to demonstrate that technology, to prove that it works in our mining material, and to hopefully get it accredited for wider railway use. And that's where I'll stop. So thanks very much, all, and I'll stop sharing my screen now and hand back to Ian.
Great, thanks, Kelvin. If people, there's no questions in the chat at the moment, but if people wanted to pop their hand up, and I'll bring you in to ask some questions. Andrew, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, Kelvin.
Is that the Andrew I know? Is that
Indeed it is, yep.
Hi, Andrew.
You mentioned that you're going to have track work there in due course. How's the progress, and when do you expect to get some track laid?
Depends. Well, I could answer that question in different ways, Andrew. So we do have some track on site, which is being laid right now, but sadly it's for sidings rather than for the running lines. So the sidings are going in as we speak to accommodate some of our rolling stock, which we want to get up to the site as soon as possible. And we're hoping that the track work will follow as soon as we have confirmation of the private investment. So, as I said, we've made some significant progress in seeking the private investment. There's no secret about how much we need. We need of the order of 300 million of private investment to make the site a reality, and we have identified a very strong possibility of that happening. And if that does happen, Andrew, we'll start installing the track work as soon as possible, so later this year. But it'll be a long road, so with a plan to open in 2027.
Cool, thanks.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Anybody else got any questions or anything in the chat? Nothing in the chat again. I think it just goes to show the comprehensiveness of your presentation there, Kelvin. It's
well, it's worth saying,
explained it very well.
If anyone's interested in more about GCRE, we do have a number of open days. And I know I'm speaking to a team which is focused around Milton Keynes. Is that right, Ian?
Yeah,
but,
but national as well. So we got people all around the country.
Yeah, but just ping me a message in the chat if you're interested in the open days, and I can send you the links to those, and you can come and see the site for itself, with or without track. If you come towards the middle of this year, hopefully we'll see the track being installed.
Brilliant. Richard's got his hand up. Go ahead, Richard.
Good afternoon. Yes, Richard Stainton, Network Rail electrification engineer. Kelvin, it's good to see you're looking at overline, and the gradient initiative is something that we're very keen to understand more of, because that's something we've been trying to do on Network Rail. But the problem we've run into is when running into a testing gradient on the test site is that not only do you need a test track, you also need a test train.
Yes.
Getting a test train and a test track at the same time has proved to be very difficult. So we've now resorted to trying to test on the main line, because that takes one of the issues out of the equation. Does GCRE include a test train to test infrastructure?
That's interesting. Yes, so it will have a test train on the infrastructure testing loop. That will plan to. It won't be a high speed, so it's likely to be 70 miles an hour. It'll be freight categorized train rather than passenger. And on the infrastructure testing loop, we haven't got a plan to purchase a high-speed test train. By high speed, I mean 110 miles an hour.
Yeah. So
but I think
that's been a real challenge, is getting hold of a test train to test infrastructure.
Yeah, but I think part of the answer to the question is what we're demonstrating on the site is the Furrer and Frey gradient test system. And once tested and developed, it potentially could be installed somewhere else. Perhaps a Riddick. I don't know. I don't know, Richard.
It's a challenge to do that. To test the interface, you obviously need a test train and a test infrastructure.
Yes. I'll fess up though. For the time being, the system is going to be installed on one of our sidings. It'll be non-electrified. It'll be demonstratable as a system, but we haven't got even an electric train to run under it this year. That will come in time. The plan is the plan is when we have the infrastructure, when we have the testing loops built, we will relocate the facility and put it on our test loops, and then we will have trains on the site, but they won't be a test train. They will be service trains.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Interesting that you have that challenge, though. We'd be interested to find out more. But of course, Andy Doherty is our CTO. You may have worked with Andy in his time with Network Rail. He's very amenable to discussing these challenges.
I'm sure he is, and know him from well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, great question, Richard. Anybody else got any questions or want to put anything in the chat? Doesn't look like. I think it just shows how, as I said, how comprehensive and detailed the presentation was, Kelvin. So thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And if we could put our hands together to thank Kelvin in the usual manner, that'd be great. Or the new electronic manner, however it works. Yeah. Oh, wrong way. Cool. So thanks, Kelvin. That takes us then to last business. Obviously, the next meeting will be on the second week in November. I don't think we've got somebody actually completely nailed down for that yet, to be honest with everybody. So November, I don't know where I got that from, April. So we'll be looking to get that out there as soon as we can. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. Cheers all.
Cheers. Thank you. That was brilliant. That's probably one of the most enjoyable ones I've seen. Even though it's not like this is that it. That's probably the worst one I've been to. She sent me that because what intrigued me was like innovation. But even if people aren't doing stuff and it's going, like we're doing this, we're doing that. I've never heard bloody test loop. They've got like a place.